Welcome back, Fragrance Fiend here today reviewing one of my all-time favorite Penhaligons. It is none other than The Tragedy of Lord George, released in 2016. It fastly became one of the best-selling perfumes from the brand, created by none other than one of the best perfumers of all time. It is Alberto Maria's. So in case you didn't know, the Portraits collection is the one with the animal heads, and this one is known as the head of the Portraits family. I'm not going to go throughout the entire family politics, but this one just simply captures traditional masculinity and sophistication with a dash of mystery, as stated by the brand. So now let's get into the confusing history of the no breakdown. Currently, the official website only suggests that it has Ambroxan rum and Tonka bean, which spells out art. So if you go to one of the first official retailers in Australia, being David Jones for Penhaligons, they suggest additional notes of shaving foam, as it's always been, plus amber. So somewhere along the lines, the official website changed, and you'll find with official retailers, they only get the initial press kit and then they won't really update their website from there. And recently, another one of our official retailers called Maya listed the brand, since Penhaligons have a new dealer here. And the latest from them suggests that it also has lavender, vetiver, cedarwood, but no shaving foam. So no matter where you look, it's a pretty inconsistent no breakdown, but let's break down the fragrance ourselves. So if I'm being honest, I've actually had this for 2 years now. As you can see, I have not even sprayed it yet. Main reason being, I have a pretty large collection, and the minute you spray a bottle is when the aging process somewhat begins, as the oxygen exposure starts to affect the quality of the ingredients over time. Obviously, fragrances can also get a little more potent as they mature, but as this one's a hint too mature for me for the time being, it's probably one I'm going to save for a few years down the track. But lucky for me, as of a few weeks ago, Penhaligons has re-entered the Western Australian market after we lost the brand about 2 years ago. So I went into the store today, gave it another smell, wrote down my initial thoughts, as well as my countless memories smelling the scent from years ago. So in the opening, you get a very small hint of Ambroxan, which gives the fragrance a tiny bit of a lift, a very fresh sensation mixed with the darker textures of that brandy, which is still quite prominent as well in that opening. With notes such as brandy, tonka, and amber, the Ambroxan helps level out the playing field a bit, and giving it somewhat a lighter texture. And it's a really balanced fragrance in terms of its freshness and sweetness. You've got that initial freshness from the shaving foam, which is prominent from the opening to the dry down. It's the most signature element of the fragrance, which is very prominent, and I think it's what a lot of people either love or hate about the fragrance. This is the element of the fragrance which gives it its maturity as well, but more about that later. Then lastly, you've got the woods, which I only get a hint of the vetiver. The cedarwood is more prominent in contrast, which adds that creamy texture to the mix. And lastly, what would a barbershop fragrance be without the note of lavender? This is a really subtle yet sweet lavender. It's not very organic, which I'm not really a fan of a natural smelling lavender. Thankfully, that lavender element is somewhat minimalistic. I'm not really a fan of the most natural smelling lavenders, but thankfully this one is dialed back just enough. But really, that brandy element actually only lasts probably about 15 to 20 minutes throughout the entire dry down. It's that shaving foam which is just there consistently. So I sprayed the fragrance 9 hours ago. It's barely existent now, but it's definitely still on my skin. It probably lost potency about 3 hours ago, but for the first 6 to 7 hours, it actually had pretty reasonable projection, and the longevity hasn't been too bad either. For an eau de parfum of this price, I could probably expect a tiny bit more projection in contrast, but it's not weak either, so I'm going to give it above average marks for this one. The scent itself smells like it's from a completely different time period, as if they had a lost manuscript from the 1800s and they rediscovered it and tried to recreate it. It's just got a very vintage-like DNA. If you walk into your average department store and go through the designer section, you will not really be able to find anything quite like this. Far from what I'd call mass appealing by any means. Even in the realm of niche perfumery, I feel like it's a DNA which hasn't really been done in a very long time, purely because this style of perfumery is not really in trend at the moment either, and I could assume that's why this one is also the king of that barbershop DNA as we know it. This one definitely screams old money. Even owning this and absolutely loving the scent, it feels like something I can't really get away with wearing that much either. It does smell a little more mature, but without smelling like an old man. I think 30s to 50s is the desired age range for this one. Anyone you can't really get away with wearing on, like, say, a hot summer day in your shorts and shirt. It's a very formal, sophisticated scent you want to suit up with in a tux or fine jacket. It's just not one of those daily wear style fragrances. As far as the complexity goes, it is somewhat linear throughout the dry down. It does change a tiny bit, but really it's just that shaving foam you're getting the entire way through with a hint of woods and that brandy in the opening. But besides that, the quality is through the roof. It smells like such an incredible fragrance, and it just smells the price. There's obviously a ton of barbershop style fragrances out there, but a lot of them just smell artificial and synthetic and have that sticky-like quality to them, which just makes them very unappealing. Whereas this is just on a whole other level. And on top of that comes the incredible bottle. This is one of my favorite caps of all time. It's metal, pretty weighty. I have seen a few photos where the antlers have been destroyed in transit, so I think they're a tiny bit more fragile in contrast. The juice is dyed brown. The only design flaw of this bottle is the sticker on the front. I only touch this when I have absolute clean hands because anything can transfer transfer onto it. Being a liquid or anything colored you might have on your hands will permanently stain it. They should have made like a glossy finish on it, but the brand really does need to fix that. If you do want to buy this bottle, please be careful where you buy it from. There are so many counterfeiters out there doing Penhaligons. And I'm not gonna lie, they actually do a pretty good job at replicating the bottles, but you're only gonna get that opening impression of the scent for about 5 minutes before it just smells like alcohol. So please don't fall for this, that, or this. If the price is too good to be true, then it probably is. And even if it is closer to the retail price, or maybe 10 or 20% off, that's just the fake sellers trying to make it seem legit while thinking you're getting a tiny bit of a discount. And if you see someone on eBay with a 98% positive feedback review, still do not trust it, because even if you're blind buying it, the majority out there don't even know what the real scent smells like, or wouldn't even be able to tell if it's a fake. Replicating a little bottle in a box from an industry that makes over $70 billion per year really isn't that hard. So if you plan on buying this one, at least try and get it from a reputable source or official retailer. I've seen so many people get ripped off with this one. Usually if they're coming from China, Indonesia, Hong Kong, or even Czech Republic, who are really good at manufacturing counterfeits, then they're probably going to be fake. In terms of similar scents, there's nothing I can really suggest. If you're looking for that type of DNA, this is definitely the king. So as mentioned, this one only comes in 75ml. It costs £235 or 315 US, or for me, 495 Australian dollars, or find them extremely wearable. Personally for me, I love their history and branding, and mostly just the Portraits collection, which I own 6 of. I also quite like the Trade Routes collection, and of course, who doesn't like a Helvetii or Helvetii leather? Cairo is also brilliant, but I've also been quite let down with a few of their products as well, which I have been quite vocal about. These two in particular. That being said, after smelling World According to Arthur again today, I actually liked it a lot more than the initial sample I got. I felt it had a tiny bit more character than what I remember, as it was quite a bland vanilla scent, but that's just basing it off today. But anyway, that's all for today's video. Thank you so much again for watching. Feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.